Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us again. We have an excellent lineup again tonight. Two of my favorite people who I met during the legislation process. They've been part of Everlasting Hope before there was an Everlasting Hope. You will see why I think they are wonderful here in a little bit. We want to make sure that you guys know that our grant cycle is open. I'm wearing another shirt. It's kind of big tonight. I got it oversized, but all proceeds from our merchandise go to our grant program, and share that with anybody who you may know that could benefit from receiving from some money that's going through treatment. We have our contest going. Make sure you share our speaker lineup, share any of our videos, and we have a goodie basket or a $50 Target gift card. Make sure also you check out our 1 in 8 pledge. It's a simple donation of $18, pledging to help us break the stigma of infertility and sharing with your friends. So I'm going to jump right in and bring our guests in because their stories are going to touch your hearts like no other. They are both so unique, and they will shine a little bit of light too on they testified during our bill last 2019, last year now, and they are passionate about breast cancer. They are passionate about infertility and cancer preservation. So without further, let me bring them up here. Desri and Janet, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. I am going to let you dive right in and share as much or as little about your story as you want to, and we will just roll with it from there. And you guys can always, if you're watching, ask us any questions now or after, and we can address them as they come up. So, Desri, do you want to jump in? You're on top by me. That's why.
Okay.
Sure.
So I'll just kind of share with you my story, and then you kind of help guide me as we go. But so I was diagnosed with breast cancer 5 years ago, and at the time, I had a boyfriend at the time. No kids at the time. And so in the midst of being diagnosed with breast cancer, the stress of it all, trying to figure out what your treatment is, I was asked, what are you going to do about your fertility preservation? Are you going to do eggs? Are you going to do embryos? Are you going to do anything at all? And so within a matter of weeks, I had to make some really, really quick decisions about my future, and decided to do some fertility preservation. Luckily for me, at Mayo Clinic, I was able to enroll in the Livestrong program that helped pay for a lot of the medications that I needed to do. So before I could start chemotherapy, I had to do a quick 2 weeks of, oh my gosh, what's it called? I can't think of it.
Did you do your egg retrieval medication? IVF, yeah, the retrieval process.
I had to do a quick, brutal 2 weeks of IVF, so I know what some of you guys have been through, while still planning out my cancer treatment. So did that. I was able to get some eggs, and then I always laugh now that I'm paying rent for my kids, even though they're not here yet. And so for me, obviously, infertility looks a little bit different than most of you guys. This is kind of the cancer side of it. The tough part now, being a survivor, is that, even though the cancer is gone, because my breast cancer was hormone related, I still can't carry kids. So now it's looking into surrogacy or adoption or whatever we want to do after that. So it's kind of been a struggle, because obviously that isn't an affordable thing either. So unfortunately for us, it's just been put on the back burner, which really stinks because we still want kids, but that's where we're at now.
Excellent. And so was part of your initial discussion, with your oncologist, preserving your fertility? Was that right off the bat something they brought up, or did you have to know that or look that up on your own, or how did that look for you?
It was not initially brought up in my first couple of oncology appointments, I actually had a coworker that said, what about eggs? Like, what are you going to do? You're only 33 at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think about it. So I kind of brought it up, and then we moved forward from there.
Okay. Janet, now your unique, I think, part to this too is you were military. And I think there's a lot of unique, I call it unique, it's sad, parts of your story too, and the journey and the road of your career you were on when everything happened all at one time too.
Right. Yeah. So I recently retired from the military. It was last summer, but before that, I was in the military for 22 years. And if you are in the military, or if you know anybody in the military, you kind of understand that it kind of dictates your life for a little bit. You have different trainings you need to go to, and different deployments that pop up. And so it kind of inhibit yourself, if you're pregnant, some of the opportunities that you get when you're in the military. And so I fought very hard to get into flight school, and that took about 5 years of, writing letters and taking tests and doing assessments and asking for references. And I finally got my dream of going to U.S. Army flight school. And in order to do that, I couldn't have started my family yet. So here I'm at flight school, and I have 4 months to graduate and be a Black Hawk pilot for the state of North Dakota. And I find a breast lump, and ends up being breast cancer. And so at that point, I came back to North Dakota for my treatment. And my oncologist did actually bring up the question about did we want a family. And of course, that was part of the plan. Part of the plan was for me to finish my flight training, to come home and go on the next deployment, and make sure that I did that, check that block, and then I was going to start my family with my husband at the time. And so when they brought up the question about if I wanted to freeze eggs, we actually looked into the process at the time. Insurance denied any help because they said that I wasn't actively trying to have a baby with my husband at the time. And so when we saw the cost of it, and not understanding the cost of what it was going to be to treat my cancer, we just decided we had to forego anything. So now, of course, my hopes of having my own family is gone. And yeah,
I want to highlight, so in both cases of and in breast cancer in general, you have to preserve your eggs before treatment. And then you also, correct me if I'm wrong, does everybody or not everybody lose their ability to carry a baby? Does that depend on the treatment they go to, or is that ability to carry gone most of the time too? From the ones I know, it seems so.
Yeah, I think it depends on the type of breast cancer or cancer that you have. But also I think you have to just kind of weigh the benefits and the risks. And there are some who just absolutely, they still want to bear a child, and they do it, and that's their choice too.
Okay. Yeah. So you were in prime, this was your dream career you were going after, Janet, too. And so you had not only the loss of that, the loss of having a baby, and then you had to swallow your diagnosis at the same time too. And I think last night we talked during our mental health, all of the loss. So it's like one thing if we're losing, we're going through infertility, and that's a loss. You guys had cancer, and you guys had all these other things on top of it too. So first, also, thank you for your service too, Janet. I mean, you dedicated so much of your career to that, so thank you. And so tell me, did it hit you right away, or are you kind of overwhelmed with the cancer diagnosis? Or is it kind of where is that I'm gonna have a baby, not have a baby, cancer? How did you guys kind of deal with that right away? Or is it just okay, I can't have a baby, I just have to put that aside? And then does it hit you later? Does it kind of come in waves of that?
I honestly think that everybody is a little bit different in how they process it. It's definitely a huge learning curve. It's something you don't understand and you don't know. So you have to ask a lot of questions. You have to do a lot of research. You have to have a great support team around you who's also listening to some of these things that you're not picking up on because it's just the sheer shock. You're not processing everything you're getting. And so I think it's a little different for everybody. Des, that's kind of, how I kind of dealt with it is it's almost like learning a new degree, you know.
That's a good way to put it.
I remember very vividly like sitting up at the kitchen like island injecting my belly and like crying because I knew like after my egg retrieval like I had to start all of these chemo treatments and whatever. Like I don't know, for some, like I start tearing up thinking about it, but I just remember sitting there giving myself those IVF treatments going like, I can't believe that this is where I'm at and I have to make these decisions. So I think then that year, like you're so focused on like, let's just get through it, like the treatments and everything else, then the fertility issues kind of go out the window for a while. But it's probably the same of everybody else. Like it just depends on, again, those baby showers. Or last week I was watching a TV show and this lady was talking just about like the joys of motherhood. And for some reason, I just was like, I don't know if I'll ever get to experience that. And like, it's so, I'm gonna start crying right now, but like,
okay, let it out. It's safe. You're safe.
Like it's such a tough spot because you just females have that motherly instinct. They really want that, and so it's just tough. And unfortunately, it's kind of just the reality, and you got to figure out where to go with it.
Yeah, and it doesn't really leave. I mean, that, like you said, we're women. That's our desire, and it's in our heart. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like there, like, and you don't know when it's gonna like come out and get you. It's a commercial. It's a baby shower, birthday party invite. And then the next time you're fine, you can go to those things, and you just it's hard to know. So, what was your time frame? Desri, like, okay, you got your cancer diagnosis, you started infertility treatments, you started cancer treatments. What did that timeline look like?
So I was diagnosed, like middle of January in 2015. So then I started IVF, like 2 weeks after that. And then did IVF for 2 weeks, then did the egg retrieval. And a week after that, I think, started my chemotherapy. I mean, it was, well, maybe it was 3 weeks after. Maybe it's 3 weeks after my egg retrieval. We started chemotherapy, but it felt like everything was just boom, boom, boom.
Mm-hmm. And you're digesting your diagnosis during that as well.
And I, like, back to Janet's thing, I remember that too. So although I had like Livestrong help with my medications with IVF, so then it's like the whole procedure and all of that stuff, none of that's covered. I remember them calling me. So then it's like you're scrambling last minute as you're already trying IVF and giving yourself these medications to figure out like, okay, now I got to find money to like pay for the next piece of this puzzle. So it's crazy. And
Janet, you had insurance for the military, I'm assuming, TRICARE?
Yeah, I had TRICARE. And just another thing I want to make note is that not only was the TRICARE they denied me, but just like I said, the cost. We weren't sure how much it was going to cost on top of the cancer diagnosis. And a little background on my cancer diagnosis is that I lost my mom to ovarian cancer and I lost my dad to kidney cancer. So in my mind, I was fighting an uphill battle, knowing, just their history a little bit. Of course, it's not going to be exactly the same history, but I thought it was going to be a fight, and it has been, because I got a second diagnosis and had to fight that one off too. But
Yeah,
So
you've
I just,
had a lot. You've had a lot even now in the last few months too. So it's like, yeah, where do you put having a baby when you're like fighting for your life? That's hard. You shouldn't have to decide, it should just or worry about cost, especially when it comes to this. That's like the last thing, especially when you're military, that you should have to worry about
Yeah.
when you're going through this.
my oncologist did set up an appointment for me and my husband at the time, and we were going to go to that first appointment, and it was a couple $1,000s for just a partial payment of that first appointment with the doctor to even start looking into my case to see if there was even a possibility. And so when we saw those numbers, I told my husband at the time that no, we're not going to do this. It's just it'd be
That's just the initial like consult, just to even go talk.
and it was a
Wow.
partial payment for the initial. Yes.
Wow. No, not right. Not fair. So share anything else. I want to talk also about the legislation experience that you guys had, because Desri's done it. Janet, were we the first time you did it? Testified? Okay, so good. We get two different pictures of it too. But share, I guess, let's start with one thing you would like people to know about cancer, and maybe another thing you'd like them to know about the importance of us working towards getting cancer preservation covered. I think we kind of hit on that for the most part about what it looks like when you're hit with this diagnosis, hit with the quick decisions, the turnaround time of 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever it may be, and having to make those decisions too.
Oh gosh.
We could go on.
Answer, Janet. You can go first.
I'm processing too.
What I want people to know about cancer. Oh, gosh, I don't know. I mean, people probably heard this, but it just doesn't discriminate and it affects everyone. And even though I think life after cancer is so much better, and I'm so grateful, like that I'm 5 years out, there's still a lot of emotional things that we carry that people can't see. So a lot of probably unhealed wounds that we still carry from that experience and deal with.
You're part of a support group, right? There's a local support group. Is there any other ones throughout the state? You guys have a Bismarck one, if you can share about that.
Sure. I love that. So me and another gal, Ellie Wald, we started a Young Survivors Coalition support group. So for young, basically breast cancer survivors, but we'll take anybody. And so we started that, I want to say in 2016, 15? I don't even know. A while ago, and I don't know. We started on Facebook. Facebook now we have like over 60 members in our closed group. And then we had monthly face-to-face meetings, but those have since gone. And usually we get probably about 12 gals in Bismarck, Mandan. And then one of my friends has also started one in Minot, so it's been great.
I just love support groups. I know. I urge people, and in regards to our support groups, we have one on Facebook called Now What? And it came forward actually from just somebody who had found our group and said, hey, there's a need for some support for women who will never be able to carry their own babies, or perhaps they have had a surrogate and they will have a baby, or they will never have a child of their own. So it's kind of twofold, but it's a nice place to just connect with people. And of course, we were working towards getting it in person together, and thou shalt, that thing that should remain nameless came about. So I don't give it any time or energy anymore. But yeah, so we try to cater as well. But I just want people to know about your specific support group too for those going through cancer.
Yep. And the reason we really started it was because there are other support groups in town. And Janet, I think, was a part of it for a while, but we wanted to start one because ladies or women, whoever's going through breast cancer, it's a little bit different stage in life from like 55 and over versus when you're 30 or 20 or even 40. So that's basically why we wanted to start it.
That's excellent.
So
we're going to touch. Oh, Janet, I have one question for you. Did you get support, or did you feel supported, or have any special support military-wise when you were going through any of this?
I definitely, the North Dakota National Guard had, at the time when I started my first battle with cancer, social workers on staff, and the chaplain of the office. So one of the social workers here in Bismarck was extremely helpful, and the military was really good with any kind of leave I needed to do any of my treatments, whether it be my chemo treatments that would knock you out, or radiation that would just fatigue you and make you almost worthless for a couple days. Healing from this January, I had my 10th surgery. So yeah, between leave and leave programs, counseling services, they were very supportive.
Makes me happy. Huge on support. So that's excellent to know. And I think it's always about, just seeking too, to see what's out there, what's available, reaching out and asking too. Anything else you guys want to share about your stories or in general?
All I was going to say about like legislation, like what I kind of learned is it's just amazing how little people know about it. So I think like what you're doing is fabulous, because there's a lot of misinformation and misperceptions out there of like what people are actually going through.
Definitely. And so these two ladies actually came forward. Like I said, before we were Everlasting Hope, I was lining up testimonies, and I'm like, I don't know anybody who went through infertility with cancer preservation, and so thank you to both of you for coming forward, supporting us and believing in us so early on. Desri, you had testified before, so you were you had been at that podium before. So Janet, that was your first time, right? You guys both save those for next time, because those were excellent. But Janet, can you share like what was that like? Like, how can you explain to somebody first time where they're thinking about it, but they're maybe not sure to come to the Capitol and step up to that podium and share?
First of all, just being in the military and gone through an MBA program, there's different opportunities to step up and talk out loud to people. And so one thing I got good at was practicing. And so I made sure to, write out a few things and actually practice it a few times before I actually did it at the Capitol. But I think what really what really helped me through that process was all the research and the passion that you bring to it. And you started us off on an awesome foot and brought us all up with you. And so we were successful because of how you started all of us on that process.
Thank you for that. I do this for families like you guys, and I'm stubborn, German, I was passionate, all the things. I was like, I'm gonna be there till I'm 80 if I have to, especially for cancer preservation patients. I'm gonna figure out a way. If this one has to go through first and alone, so be it. But the cancer one should be a no-brainer. So I am not giving up on that one. And the room, it's kind of a smaller room. I have some pictures I'm going to show. I'll put a video up at some point. I was trying to be crafty and make a video, but we're all kind of crammed in there, and you kind of get in there and you're nervous, and then you kind of get up there and you're just here's what you get kind of more amped up or geared up, and you just and you can read, you can type it out and read it word for word. And so, and Desri, what tips or advice would you have, since you've done it a few times, maybe looking back now?
Gosh.
I think you nailed it, just how important it is. They want to hear our stories.
That's what I was just gonna say. People relate to stories. And so you might not have all of the facts, but sharing your story, people just relate to that.
I'll get the facts. As we were trying to talk about the other night, don't worry about any of that stuff. Even if you saw the post for this one, I was going through research studies to find out what the cancer preservation, statistics. I don't like figuring them out, but I like finding them, so I can do that. that I can do. We just want your story. And It took we were in them an hour and a half total with waiting. I don't think it was that long. I do plan on putting together a day at the Capitol for all people to come. Bring your babies, that you've had successful outcomes with treatment, and we're gonna do some fun things this year. But definitely want to shine a light on the cancer preservation piece. So I really appreciate you two being here tonight. And I don't see any questions. I know it's hard coming forward and sharing, let alone the cancer piece. Janet, you're still going through so much. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Anything else that I missed?
Thank you for what you do. We appreciate you too.
Oh,
Absolutely.
You're welcome. Not quitting, not quitting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.